In the community where I grew up, most women never once scheduled an appointment with an OB-GYN during pregnancy. That single fact sounds alarming until you understand the entire system of care that quietly surrounded every expectant mother instead. Midwives, experienced grandmothers, and generations of shared knowledge filled a role that most modern viewers have never seen up close. But this story is not simple, and it is not a universal rule that applies to every Amish family or district. What actually happened when something went wrong, and who made the call to seek a hospital? I watched this world from the inside, close enough to note that the women in it were not isolated or ignored. They were held by something most of us have quietly lost. What does it actually mean to trust your community with the most vulnerable moment of your life? The answer starts before sunrise, in a farmhouse where the lights come on hours before the rest of the world wakes up. Women in that community made choices that would look completely foreign to most American mothers today. But before you picture a single, uniform Amish world, you need to know that picture is wrong. There are over 40 distinct Amish settlements in the United States, and the differences between them aren't small details. They're entire philosophies. A family in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, might welcome a certified nurse midwife into their home and keep careful prenatal records. A family 2 counties over or 2 states over might operate under entirely different expectations about what pregnancy even requires. Some districts maintain close relationships with local hospitals and encourage regular checkups without hesitation. Others hold a deep community-wide trust in traditional birth attendants who have delivered babies in those homes for generations. The variation isn't random, it reflects how each district reads the boundary between the outside world and the life they've built inside it. So when you hear that Amish women in one community never saw an OB-GYN, the real question isn't whether that's shocking, it's what kind of care they were actually receiving instead. Someone did show up for those pregnancies, and she usually arrived carrying a worn leather bag and a lifetime of knowledge. The midwife was not a gap filler or a last resort. She was the center of the whole birth world in many Amish communities. Her training varied by district and by decade, but the most trusted midwives had attended hundreds of births before they ever caught a baby alone. Some completed formal certified nurse midwife programs. Others learned in a long apprenticeship beside an older woman who had learned the same way. What they shared was something clinical training doesn't always build: a relationship with the family that started months before labor. A midwife doing prenatal visits knew the mother's history, her fears, and the layout of the bedroom she planned to deliver. She tracked fetal position with her hands, measuring growth by feel and experience rather than ultrasound. Families trusted her not despite the intimacy of that model, but because of it. That trust ran deep enough to carry most pregnancies safely to the other side. But not every pregnancy is most pregnancies. The midwife was never the only one who showed up. Long before labor began, a quiet network of women had already been at work, and that network ran deeper than any single appointment could reach. A grandmother who'd delivered 8 children of her own carried knowledge that no textbook had ever organized into chapters. She knew which teas eased the ache in a swollen back, which positions helped a baby settle low, and when a woman's silence meant she needed company more than advice. Neighbors arrived with food, with strong hands, and with the particular calm of someone who had stood in that same room before. You don't learn that kind of steadiness in a waiting room. Pregnancy in these communities wasn't a private medical event managed between a woman and her doctor. It was a collective preparation, shared across kitchens and front porches and long afternoons of practical work. Every woman who folded a stack of clean linens or helped scrub a birthroom floor was also passing something forward. The question was what happened when that preparation met something none of them had seen before. Most people picture an Amish birth the same way: a farmhouse bedroom, a midwife, a kerosene lamp burning low. And for many women in many districts, that picture isn't wrong, but it's only part of what was actually happening. Some families delivered at freestanding birth centers, staffed by certified nurse midwives who understood plain communities and didn't push unnecessary interventions. Others, especially in districts with more moderate views on outside medicine, gave birth in hospitals with full obstetric teams standing by. The setting wasn't decided by a single church rule. It was shaped by the district's culture, the family's history, and what the midwife or elder women in the community had seen go wrong before. A woman who'd had a difficult first birth might choose differently for her second. A grandmother who'd lost someone might quietly press for a birth center over a home delivery. What all these settings shared was the presence of known, trusted people around the laboring woman. But trust in a place and trust in a plan could only carry so far. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, something shifted and a decision had to be made fast. Not every birth went smoothly, and the women in these communities knew that before labor ever started. The midwife watched for signs that crossed a line she couldn't manage alone. Labor that stalled too long, bleeding that didn't slow, a baby whose position wouldn't shift. When that line appeared, the decision to call for help wasn't a failure of faith or a break from tradition. It was a practiced judgment, made by someone who had seen enough births to know the difference between hard and dangerous. Most Amish districts kept no phone inside the home, but a shared shanty at the road's edge or a trusted English neighbor's number served the same purpose in a crisis. Someone ran, someone drove, and the gap between a farmhouse bedroom and an emergency room closed faster than outsiders often assumed. What you rarely hear is how rehearsed that response could be, how clearly families had thought through the path before they ever needed it. The calm of a home birth and the urgency of a hospital transfer weren't opposites. They were two ends of the same prepared plan. The midwife knew every woman she delivered by name, by history, and by temperament, and that continuity is genuinely hard to replicate. When a woman labors with someone she's trusted for years, her body responds differently than it does with a stranger in scrubs. Low intervention births, when they go well, carry real advantages: less surgical risk, faster recovery, and a sense of agency that clinical settings often strip away. But the word "a community midwife" cannot run a fetal anomaly scan or catch a placenta previa before it becomes a hemorrhage. Screening tools that modern obstetrics offers aren't bureaucratic excess. They're the reason certain outcomes are now rare instead of common. What this community built was genuine care, rooted in trust and presence, and it was also care with real blind spots. Neither the admiration nor the alarm gets the full picture on its own. So what does an honest person take from a story like this, and what do you actually do with it? Lesson here isn't that modern medicine failed and tradition won, because neither story is that clean. What these women had in abundance was a community that treated birth as a shared responsibility rather than a private medical event. They weren't navigating pregnancy alone in a waiting room, hoping a stranger with a clipboard would catch something important. Someone who had done this before was always close, always watching, always ready to step in when something felt wrong. That kind of relational continuity, knowing your caregiver as a person, is something the modern system genuinely struggles to offer. And you don't have to abandon ultrasounds or prenatal labs to ask for more of it in your own care. The question worth carrying forward isn't whether their way is better, but what it reveals about what all of us actually need. We need preparation, we need presence, and we need people who know us. Qualified medical care gives you the best chance of a safe birth, and a community that holds you makes that birth something more than survival.